Hey guys, today is Monday and typically I would post a school lunch video today, but today is a different kind of Monday. It's kind of a special Monday to me, and so I thought I would make a video about that instead. Today is the first Monday of May, and that is known as Melanoma Monday, and it's actually something that's probably not real well known, which is one reason I decided to kind of sit down and tell you why Melanoma Monday has any type of significance in my life. First, it would be that my grandfather on my mom's side of the family actually passed away from melanoma. He died, I want to say, at the age of 49 years old. I never met him, and I think he died shortly before my parents even got married. So it obviously took him very young, and he missed out on a lot of what was to come for his family. Secondly is because 6 years ago I was actually diagnosed with melanoma, and that is a little bit of what I want to tell you about today. Is I want to tell you my melanoma story. So it starts pretty innocently. When I was growing up in Michigan, I would notice as the seasons changed that I had this one area in my hand that would peel. And it wasn't really a big deal. It would kind of come and go, and it just wasn't a big deal. I just suffered through it, and it was kind of annoying, but I would just get over it. 6 years ago when I was living in Houston, it had gotten worse. It had spread along my hand and had even gone into my left hand, which it had never done before. And at that point, I'd kind of had enough and decided, I need to get this checked out. I need to have a doctor look at this. So I'd gone to a couple different doctors, and they all said they couldn't really help me and that I needed to see a dermatologist. Finally, luckily the one who had told me to see a dermatologist was in a clinic that had many different specialties all within the same facility. So they were able to get me an appointment that day within a couple hours to see the dermatologist. We went in, he looked at my finger, prescribed me a cream, said that it would be fine. It was some type of eczema or something like that. And that could have been it. But he saw something on the back of my left hand and asked if I would be agreeable to have it biopsied. At this point, I had had a few skin cancer checkups, had had the full body scans. I'd had some moles biopsied. That was no big deal to me. I always figure if there's any reason that a doctor wants to biopsy it, let them biopsy it. It can't hurt. And so I said, sure, absolutely, and he did the shave biopsy that day. Like I mentioned, I'd have biopsies before, so I didn't really think too much of it until about a week and a half later, the doctor called. And I'm sure most of you would agree with me when you say that when the doctor actually picks up the phone to call you, it's probably not to tell you that your results were normal. So he did in fact tell me that my results weren't normal, that mole was a melanoma, and it was a very, very, very early stage melanoma, which was obviously very good news. It was actually what you would consider stage 0. So when it comes to cancer and comes to stage of cancer, obviously the lower the better. 0 is probably your best option. But still, they needed to make sure that the melanoma wasn't any deeper into the layers of skin and hadn't spread anywhere else in my body. So a couple weeks later, April 30th, so almost 6 years exactly this past Saturday, I had to go in for what's called an excision. And basically what they did is they took a square inch of skin off of my hand around where the mole had been located. You can see the scar there still. It's kind of red. It's not a pretty scar. It's fairly noticeable. Not horrible, but it's noticeable, and I see people look at it sometimes. So they just took a square inch of the top layer of my skin and tested that, and thankfully that tested negative. So I was very blessed to have that be the end of that instance with melanoma at that time. It hadn't spread any deeper than that first layer of skin. It hadn't spread anywhere else in my body. I 100% realize and acknowledge that I am so blessed that that was the outcome for me. When it comes to cancer stories, I would never say that mine is one of being a fighter or a survivor or anything dramatic like that. My story is one of blessing, one of the power of early detection. From that point on, I now go every 6 months to have a full body check of all of my moles. At the 5-year milestone, typically you can go to once a year checkups. But I'm sure if you looked at even just my arms right here, if you can see, I have a lot of moles and a lot of spots on my body. So my dermatologist and I have decided that I should continue going every 6 months, and I do. These checks, they're not fun, they're not painful, but they can be awkward and embarrassing. I will admit that, but they're so important. And so that's why I tell my story, because I want anyone out there watching who might think, oh, I don't want to get undressed in front of a stranger, or that must be so weird to have someone look over every inch of your body that closely. And it is. It can be. It absolutely can be. But it can be a huge difference. It can be the difference between walking out of that room with just a biopsy that comes back normal. It could be a simple outpatient surgery to have a little piece of skin taken off your hand. Or if you wait too long, it can be much more. So please, I hope that you, after seeing this, will pick up the phone, call your dermatologist, and make an appointment for a full body skin cancer check. If you even go to the American Academy of Dermatology website, there are locations that will do them for free. Just put in your zip code, tell them your state, and there are places that will do it for free. It's not everywhere, but you may be blessed enough to be in an area that has one of those sites. Early detection is so key, and so is prevention. Wear your sunscreen. Be aware of what the moles on your body are doing. If anything looks weird, if you see something new or a funny color or a funny shape, get it checked out. A biopsy is so simple. It sounds scary, but it's so simple, and it could save your life. So again, I know that my story, compared to many other stories, isn't dramatic. It's not fancy. I didn't overcome this terrible amount of adversity to where I can say that I am at this point cancer-free. I realize that. But that's because I caught it early. I was lucky enough to have been in a doctor's office who recognized something that didn't look right, and we caught it before it was anything more. So if you have to have a melanoma story, I want your story to be as simple as mine. So call your dermatologist and get naked. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. Like I said, I know it's not a great, fancy, dramatic story, but it's my story, and I think it still has the power to help somebody, and that's why I'm sharing it today. So if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. If you think there's someone in your life who needs to hear this message, I hope you'll share it. If you have any questions about my experience with melanoma, if you have questions about melanoma, I'm by no means an expert, but I might be able to help you find a resource that will help. And I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. I don't talk about heavy stuff like this all the time, but I hope you'll subscribe to see the stuff that I do post. Have a great Melanoma Monday, and go call your dermatologist.